What's good? What's good? We are live. How Billy sees it. Another episode. Yes. Today's Wednesday, and I think we're about to get it at midnight. So I wanted to get in before the midnight strikes. And at first I wanted this to be a short episode, but it might go a bit longer due to events that have occurred today. What's good? Yeah, and I titled it, I think I got it titled as Empathy and Political Discourse. It's not the most exciting title, but it's, I think it points us in the direction of where I want to go. And so we'll see what happens, yo. We'll see what happens. Today we learned that Charlie Kirk was murdered while giving a speech on a campus, on a school campus. Shot in the neck. Hundreds, if not thousands, of students saw it live. People have it filmed, lots of different angles. And you know what I'm saying? Twitter is a blur, a buzz. I try not to get on Twitter. I really hope you don't get on Twitter either, yo. But I don't know. I guess sometimes I go in there just to see how bad it can get, just to see how bad people's takes can be and how things can go. And it is all over the place, you know. It is all over the place. It is all over the place. It's so all over the place that it makes you fall back, you know. It makes you resign to some of the things. If you know, as you know, like I'm interested in political discourse. I'm interested in journalism and media. I'm interested in the way we communicate with each other. And when you see all the forces at play and the bedlam that it causes, you know, Elon Musk, the world's richest man, tweets out that the left is murderous, you know, on Twitter. That's it. The left is murderous. And if you check the comments underneath, all these people replying and adding on to that. Oh, the left is murderous. They got examples of the left being murderous. And yes, not just the left, but the people who fund the left and Soros and blah, blah, and they're picking out, you know, MSNBC and they're just creating narratives, you know. They're creating narratives. Someone like Elon Musk just blows my mind. This is one of the world's richest people. He's got all these companies he's supposedly running. Still has time to daily be a troll and to play into eugenics and to try to whip up people. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is what he has. This is what he has time to do. Let's be clear, yo. This is exactly the kind of thing that Charlie Kirk would be doing. If Charlie Kirk was alive right now, he'd be on Twitter. Someone else was killed, let's say, in the political space, he'd be on Twitter playing that one way or the other. If it was a right-wing person and he could find an opportunity to say something about the left, he would do it. If it was a trans person and he could add some more fodder to the idea that trans people aren't valuable members of our community and people we should distrust, then he would do that. If it was a black person, he would do it. He would talk about and bring up and cite a specific kind of statistic from a specific angle and try to shore up that case. That's who Charlie Kirk was. And I think it's an incredible shame, you know, Charlie Kirk comes up into the political scene and becomes famous through the turning points that he created. PAC and political movement that I'm sure he feels very proud of, that has turned the American politics into this complete fucking mess that it is now. The mess of celebrity worship nonsense, Donald Trump MAGA nonsense, that Charlie Kirk has been instrumental in that. It's just a shame. It's just an absolute shame when you look at the people who have big political voices, and particularly on the right. I hate using left and right, real talk. I've talked about that in other episodes, why I think it's useless, why it's useful to move away from that language. But here it's going to be useful for a second, because this is Charlie Kirk loved this. He loved building the notion of the right and the left and pitting people against each other this way. These concepts that would immediately categorize each other and set up in perpetual conflict, that he could perpetuate and create content over and over and make himself hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. That's who Charlie Kirk was. Charlie Kirk should not have been in anyone's media organization. He should not have been near anyone's newsroom, any place that was attempting to ascertain truth. Charlie Kirk should not be there, and yet he was invited there. He'd be on News Nation. He's friends with Donald Trump. He's platformed big stages in CPAC. You know what I'm saying? And you look at his Twitter, you look at his content. I'm sure people are going to rove through and find reams and reams of grotesque language from him. Efforts to, as I said, to just delineate what is properly American and separate immigrants, black people, women, queer people from his equation. Even from the video, if you check the video that happened today when he got shot, they were talking about gun violence minutes before he got shot. Someone was they asked him, how many trans shooters were there? Trans shootings have occurred where the shooter was trans. And I think he replied, too many. And the person replies, in the audience says, no, it was 5. There've been 5, I think since, I forget the question exactly, it was since 2003 or what the period was. He says the answer was 5. And so then he says, the person in the audience says, well, how many shootings have there been? How many mass shootings have there been on American soil? And Charlie Kirk quickly replies, are we counting gang violence? You know? And I think the shooting occurred right then after he says that. I just want to point out that if you can watch the demeanor and the energy, this is Charlie's thing, you know? He picks up the mic, he has a quick answer, he has a quick retort. Everything that someone could say, he has a quick double back answer. He's become famous for that and well loved. A lot of people think he's fun and smart and clever because of that ability to take complex conversations and complex discourse and reduce it to buzzwords and catchphrases and gotcha. So there, you know, after the other shooting with the trans person and some of the legal efforts to try to restrict gun rights from trans people, the question was to bring to the fact that this is a non-issue. You know, targeting trans people with gun rights is a non-issue. But his answer was, you know, too much, too many. You know, he had a quick one. The crowd, I think, loved it. The crowd was bugging for that. And then the follow-up question, again, he's like, instead of answering the question or dealing with that friction, why are you drawing so much attention to trans people when, in fact, like, the perpetrators of gun violence are overwhelmingly not trans, right? Instead of dealing with that, he pivots to gang violence, which is, you know, he's playing chess, he's playing narrative chess, he's ahead of the game. He's already going to pivot to something to do with gang violence, which will bring him to race politics for sure, which will bring him to black people for sure. That's the kind of game that Charlie Kirk played. And he inspired all these other clowns, Ben Shapiro, Matt Walsh. They're all part of the Rush Limbaugh, the old Fox News Tucker Carlson, that whole ilk, this whole arena of pugilistic performance politics, you know? Particularly right-wing. And what that means in this case is it's at the exclusion of our wholeness, at the exclusion of accepting our fullness. It is a carving out. It is by pointing out and carving out segments of the population as problematic. And there's always something. There's always somebody. There's always a man wearing a dress inappropriately, right? For them. There's always some grievance against Christianity or against whiteness or something like this. Kirk was also a paid propagandist for Israel in the middle of a genocide. Proudly. Willing to spin narratives, willing to quickly assert whatever the Netanyahu government tells him to assert, and use his platform to cover for that. That's who he was. And I have such a deep problem with that. I have a deep problem with it on a level that most people probably don't understand. Because most people don't take a deep look at the media landscape and are really deeply trying to tackle the challenge of misinformation, disinformation, and of this partisan opinion media game. Kirk was at the top of that, man. He was a national figure, made himself famous through this division, through this hateful stuff. And even with that, I stand here and I'll tell you, we need to be mindful and careful about political violence. Even as Kirk, Ben Shapiro, and these fuckboys are very happy to exact political violence on groups that they see as expendable, and they'll do it. I think we have to be careful with the political violence. These guys are waiting for opportunities for stuff like this. We're going to see now. There's some kind of, they're already, as I said on Twitter, the commentary is about the left and the Democrats, and the left are violent. And the Democrats are not equipped to push back on this either. They just aren't, you know? They just aren't. So what happens is, we'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. But you know, even as I think about ways that the future of media develops, it's important for me, like, to find a lane that doesn't deteriorate the value. So that is to say, like, to gloat or to be excited about this murder in some way pulls me into their dysfunction and their delusion, and it pulls us away from the broader goal. So I don't have to do that. I'm glad that this loudmouth, violent person won't come up with new content anymore. But we have to be interested in the discourse, and that's the whole thing, right? You know, I'm as I've said in several episodes, I think that we communicate poorly. I think that the communication is poor. I think that we've been taught to communicate poorly. The dominant culture in the media is full of lazy, poor communicators masquerading as good communicators, masquerading as journalists. Some of them are paid to communicate poorly. They engage in, like, divisive bullshit on television for money, and it just creates an absurd climate that produces stuff like this. And Kirk was one of those people. Kirk was one of those people who insisted that the Second Amendment cannot be curtailed in any way, and that we cannot have any gun laws, even when children are getting shot in schools. He's someone who laughs about DEI and suggests that black Congress members and senators, black and women, female Congress people, that they're not qualified, that their brains can't operate on the level. He said that openly and publicly about black congresswomen and black people in general. He's someone who would lend his mouth and his platform to anyone who would pay him, you know? I think he lands easily in that space called journalism prostitution. He's a journalism prostitute. The world would be a great deal better if Charlie Kirk was selling pre-peeled oranges on the corner for a living, instead of spreading invective and spreading lies and bullshit, whipping up white people against black people, men against women, straights against queers, for money. For money. That's what he did. And I can say all that and still say, you know, it's crazy, it's heinous, it's obscene. It's obscene in one way. In another way, it's right. It makes perfect sense in this moment, in the middle of this genocide, in the middle of these ICE raids that he loved, where families are being split up and law-abiding, you know, citizens even, where people are actually going through the process, people are getting picked up from the courtrooms. So all this heinous shit is going on, and this fits right into that. It's another example of it. Absurdity. He took pride in being callous and cruel. He took pride, as I said, in having quick, easy comeback answers for difficult sociological topics and issues. You know? And that would be his legacy. That's what he leaves back behind. A legacy of being a divisive clown. He won't get the opportunity to grow old enough to learn and see how absurd and disgusting it is to be that person. Like, I've seen Bill O'Reilly go through a change. I've seen Bill O'Reilly talk about some sort of a growth process where he looks at his career a little differently. I've seen Tucker Carlson have a come to reality moment where he questions Fox News and questions his whole youthful career. Charlie Kirk won't have that. He is lost to us in his prime, when he was at his prime, fielding and rejecting quality questions, mocking matters of import, and profiting from our division. I also think it's important sometimes for people to know that this is how you will be remembered. I don't think it makes sense to clean everybody up. If someone passes everyone or gets killed or whatever happens, when they're no longer with us, that we have to pretend that they were good people and say nice things about them. Charlie Kirk wouldn't want that, in fact. Charlie Kirk wouldn't want that. Charlie Kirk said he didn't like empathy. He thought empathy was a fraud, that it was fake, and there was a problem. It was actually harmful. Maybe you should honor Charlie Kirk in this moment and keep it a buck about who he was. And no need for pleasantries. And know that we're still dealing with, like, the residue of these other people who are inspired by Charlie Kirk, these other media and political organizations and these clever institutions and these players who are out here getting their name recognition up on the backs of other people, on, you know, using political violence for their own personal gain. It's good that people know that this is how you'll be remembered. You will not be remembered. We will not conjure up nice things about you. For all the clowns and the journalists, posers. So, you know, the same goal from before persists. The goal of having and improving our political discourse persists. Doesn't go anywhere. We actually will have a bunch of content from Charlie's and others to look at, to see and analyze, like, why was he doing that? Why did he get on the horn and spend so much time talking about the left? Why did he use words like the left and the right so frequently? I've talked about this. We know it's to divert us from actually having a discourse. It's team building. Once you put something in the left category, the other thing is the right category. The people listening, particularly those listening to Charlie's show, whatever his show was, these right-wing venues, they play to the lowest, dumbest members of society and keep people from having a meaningful shot at what we're supposed to be doing here, which is to collaborate and to live and to be free. Charlie's a descendant of Samuel Cartwright, who back in 1850 invented the word drapetomania. Made himself millions, was able to go on a tour. He made so much money in 1850, he and his wife and his family went on a 2-year tour, a global tour, just for kicks. And what he did, how did he make so much money? He was a journalist and a doctor. And he used his clout, his medical expertise, his celebrity, his access as a journalist. He was published in so many magazines at the time, prominent magazines. He developed what was Daily Wire, what was Fox News, what was News Nation back then. This was Samuel Cartwright, called himself a doctor. And he came up with diseases that would stigmatize basic human reality for black people. For instance, the desire to be free, those that ran away, those that had the will and the ability and the goal of running away. He couldn't see them as human and accept a narrative of like, oh, yeah, humans want to be free. Of course, he couldn't see that the slaves wanting to be free and running away was an indictment. First off, it should reveal to you their humanity. It's a further expression of their humanity, and it reveals the inhumanity of the system, the political system he was in, the slavery, the chattel slavery system. He couldn't do that. Instead, he called it drapetomania. It was a psychological condition because slaves, black people, African people were slaves and should be slaves. That's their intent. That's what they are on the planet for. And any deviation from that is some sort of a pathology and problem. And that's what he did. And he sold magazines and he made himself a lot of money. And that's who Charlie Kirk is. That's who Ben Shapiro is. That's what Sean Hannity is. That's what Jesse Waters is. Andrew Klavan, Matt Walsh, Dennis Prager. Just to name a few. We are infested with these voices, these selfish, self-serving voices who monetize on the suffering of other people. And I think that those people can be beaten in this realm we call politics, in this realm we call truth and philosophy and discourse. But they've done such a great job. They've done such a great job of pulling us away from actual discourse and pulling us into like debate, pulling us into argumentation for argument's sake. Like I said, cruelty. You got this crop of clowns now on Jubilee who are proud to be fascists. Proud. Fox News is like trying to reclaim Nazi. Everything's so goofy. Everything's so goofy and backwards. You know? I was definitely on a, like, who gives a fuck kind of mode. When I say who gives a fuck, I mean in terms of how I'm being perceived. Obviously, there's a lot to give a fuck about. And just be clear, again, Charlie did not give a fuck about any of the things that I give a fuck about. In fact, just the opposite. So that's that. We're going to move on. That's the last time I'll mention Charlie Kirk. You know? This episode. He's not worth mentioning. Beyond this episode. But he'll be replaced by a new clown. There'll be someone else at the head of Turning Point trying to fill those shoes, trying really hard to be just as bombastic and spiteful and manipulative. And it rolls on. But Charlie Kirk is a victim of the very violent political discourse that he perpetrated, that he burdened us with. The irony is insane. From what I understand, the campus itself, I think it was in Utah. Might have been in Utah. I gotta check this out, but I think the campus itself has a open carry policy. For students, and is like proudly about that. So the irony is wild on the gun stuff, because he is someone who would tell you that, yeah, a couple of children have to get killed in order to preserve our rights for unfettered access to guns. But beyond that, the way we communicate, the way we don't communicate, the way we pit people against each other, he was at the forefront of that. That's who he was. I saw someone try to pin him as a free speech advocate. It's so funny how free speech, he's a free speech advocate in specifically one specific way, right? For white people's right to say nigger, white people's right to say racial invective, and to say, you know, insensitive things racially. That's when he becomes a free speech advocate. He's not a free speech advocate for Palestine, for anti-genocide protesters. He didn't speak up for their rights. He didn't speak up for Hind Rajab, innocent girl who's been murdered. He didn't speak up for the university students who've lost their jobs. So where does the free speech go for him? Oh, it goes for, free speech works for him as so far as you can pay him, as you're one of his clients that, you know, is in his little right-wing circle, that he can feed some messaging back to the right wing, to the Republican Party, and get that whole economy going for himself. That's the extent to which he cares about free speech. He's not a free speech advocate. So the game continues to get us to speak and communicate with better clarity and intention. And intention, not just the words that we're using. Better clarity sometimes tells us that we should be using better words. And yeah, that's true. I'm talking about like intention underneath the words. And he was someone where the intent, again, check the video the day that he was shot, the moments before. Check the interaction, the energy, his willingness to just, he's got snappy comebacks rather than discourse. We need a different intention altogether. He represents an old shithead guard of clowns. We're in a different mode of intention. And while there are terrible things that have gone on all over the world, you know, we keep it moving. I don't know what else to say on that. We keep it moving, and yeah, I'll have more on this tomorrow, I guess. Talking about intention and how we speak. That's it, y'all. Peace. I'll see you tomorrow. Be well. That's how Billy sees it. That's how I see it. Peace.